The ship came from the stars on a Tuesday morning. Ambassador stood at the observation window of the diplomatic vessel, watching the blue and green planet grow larger. Earth, the natives called it, a small world circling a small star in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The galactic Concord had discovered it 6 months ago and had spent every day since preparing for this moment. First contact with a new species was always delicate work. Had done it 14 times before. The process was simple: arrive, observe, classify, welcome. In 200 years, the Concord had brought over 200 species into its peaceful coalition. Some were tall, some were small, some breathed different gases or lived in different temperatures, but they all shared one thing in common. They were all prey species. The galaxy had learned long ago did not produce predators that built civilizations. Predators were violent, short-sighted, and solitary. They fought and killed and died young. Prey species survived. They worked together. They built cities and ships and governments. They looked at the stars and dreamed of peace. Was certain that humans would be the same. The reports supported this belief. Humans had forward-facing eyes, yes, which was unusual. But they were social creatures. They lived in family groups. They formed bonds with other species, keeping animals as companions. They made art and music. They cried when they were sad and laughed when they were happy. Prey species behaviors, all of them. The diplomatic vessel entered Earth's atmosphere and descended toward the meeting point. A human ship waited there, floating above the ocean. It was called the Endurance, and it was small by Concord standards. Simple, almost primitive. Felt a surge of warmth. These humans would be easy to welcome, easy to protect. The Concord would show them the galaxy, and they would be grateful. The airlock opened, and stepped onto the human ship with a delegation of 6 other Concord members. They represented different species, different worlds, different bodies. But they all wore the silver robes of diplomacy, and they all carried the same message of peace. A human stood waiting for them. He was not what expected. Captain Park was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and steady eyes. He wore a uniform of dark blue, simple and clean. His face showed no fear, no nervousness, no uncertainty. He looked at the alien delegation the same way he might look at a sunrise, with calm interest and nothing more. "Welcome to the Endurance," he said. His voice was deep and quiet. "I am Captain Park. It is an honor to meet you." Performed the traditional greeting, a lowering of the head with hands spread wide. The other delegates did the same. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Concord," said. 200 species united in peace. We hope that humanity will join us." Captain nodded. "We hope so too. Please let me show you our ship." The tour began. Walked through the narrow corridors of the Endurance, observing everything. The ship was efficient but not elegant. The humans moved through it with practiced ease, stepping around each other without speaking, communicating with glances and small gestures. Pack behavior noted, common in prey species. They stay close for safety. The captain introduced his senior officers one by one. Lieutenant was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. She was the tactical officer responsible for analyzing threats. Sergeant Lee Menu was larger, with scars on his hands and a calm smile. He led the security team. Doctor had gentle hands and a soft voice. She was the medical officer. Engineer was quiet, always watching, always thinking. They were polite, professional, welcoming. And something about them made uneasy. It was nothing obvious, nothing could identify, but there was something in the way they carried themselves, something in the way their eyes tracked movement, something in the way they positioned their bodies, always balanced, always ready. Ready for what? The thought disappeared when they reached the observation deck. The view of Earth was beautiful from here. Blue oceans and white clouds and green continents, a living world full of life. "Your planet is lovely," said. Captain smiled. "Thank you, we have worked hard to keep it that way." Before could respond, the lights flickered. Red replaced white. A harsh alarm filled the air, loud and urgent. The delegates froze. It was instinct, hardwired into their biology over millions of years. When danger comes, prey species freeze. They hide. They wait for the threat to pass. But the humans did not freeze. Captain moved immediately, crossing to a communication panel with long, quick strides. "Report," he said. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Sir, emergency signal from Concord Station 7. They are under attack. Hegemony forces, heavy assault." Felt ice spread through every vein. The hegemony, the enemy, the only true predator species the Concord had ever encountered. Violent, brutal, without mercy. They had been attacking Concord outposts for decades, and the Concord had no answer for them except to run. "How far?" Captain asked. 20 minutes at full speed, sir." "Set course, maximum velocity." The captain turned to his officers. Each one was already moving, already working. Lieutenant was at her station, pulling up tactical data. Sergeant Lee Menu was speaking into a communicator, mobilizing his team. Doctor was heading for the medical bay, preparing for casualties. Engineer was checking systems, rerouting power. No one had given them orders. They simply acted. Stepped forward, confused. "Captain, what are you doing?" "Going to help," answered. "But the hegemony, they are dangerous, they are killers, you cannot fight them." Captain looked at. His expression had not changed. He was still calm, still steady. But something new was in his eyes now. Something had never seen in 200 years of diplomatic work. "We do not run from threats," said simply. "We end them." The ship shuddered as the engines powered up. The Endurance turned toward the stars and began to accelerate. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Station 7. It was burning, holes torn through the hull, debris floating in the void. Hegemony warships circled like sharks, firing into the dying station again and again. The delegates huddled together, trembling. This was death. This was the hegemony. There was nothing to do but watch and mourn. But the humans were not watching. "Lieutenant, targeting solutions," Captain ordered. "Locked, sir. 12 enemy vessels. Weak points identified." "Sergeant Lee, prepare boarding teams." "Ready, sir. 30 seconds to launch." "Doctor, prepare for mass casualties. We will be taking survivors." "Medical bay is ready, Captain." "Engineer, I need shields at maximum." "Done, sir. She will hold." The Endurance flew into the battle. Watched in disbelief as the small human ship engaged the hegemony fleet. It should have been suicide. It should have been instant death. But the humans moved differently. They did not attack head-on. They struck from angles, slipping between enemy ships, hitting weak points, vanishing before the enemy could respond. Lieutenant called out enemy positions with cold precision. Sergeant Lee Menu led teams onto the station, fighting through corridors filled with hegemony soldiers. Doctor treated wounds that should have been fatal, keeping soldiers alive through sheer determination. Engineer held the ship together with wire and will. And Captain Park commanded it all. 2 hours later, it was over. The hegemony forces retreated, broken and confused. The Endurance sat amid the wreckage, damaged but intact. Over 300 conquered survivors had been pulled from the station and were now being treated in the medical bay. Found Captain on the bridge. He was sitting in his chair, exhausted but alert. Blood stained his uniform. He had fought too. "Captain," said softly, "I must ask. The Concord has studied many species. We have classifications, categories, systems. We thought we understood what kind of species build civilizations." Looked at the ambassador and waited. "We were wrong about humans," continued. "You are not prey." Captain Park smiled. It was a tired smile, but not unkind. "No," he agreed, "we are not." Stared at the human captain, at the crew working around him, at the rescued survivors being carried to safety, and for the first time in a long career felt something new. Fear. Humans were not prey. They were something far, far worse. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. A new species had engaged the hegemony in battle. A new species had won. A new species called humans from a small blue planet had done what no one in the Conquered had ever done before. They had fought back. Scholar watched the reports from a quiet laboratory on the Conquered. Was a researcher, small and gray-skinned, with 4 arms and eyes that could see in spectrums most species could not imagine. For 60 years, had studied alien biology, had written books about why prey species survived and predator species did not, had believed, truly believed, that civilization required peace. Now was not sure what to believe. The recordings from Station 7 played on repeat, humans running toward gunfire, humans carrying wounded aliens to safety, humans fighting hand to hand against hegemony soldiers twice their size, and winning. It made no sense. Requested permission to study the human crew of the Endurance. The Conquered Council granted it immediately. They were desperate to understand what they were dealing with. 3 weeks later, arrived at Earth. The planet was strange. Too much water, too much weather, too many different environments packed onto one small world. Deserts and forests and frozen wastelands and boiling jungles, all existing together. Any species that evolved here would have to adapt constantly, changing to survive. Perhaps that explained something. Captain Park welcomed aboard the Endurance with the same calm politeness he had shown Ambassador. He introduced his crew. They smiled and nodded and offered their cooperation. Doctor became primary contact. She was the ship's medical officer, trained in human biology. She answered every question with patience and clarity. She seemed genuinely curious about alien biology in return. And the things she told were terrifying. "Tell me about your response to danger," said on the first day. Doctor nodded. "We have a chemical called adrenaline. When we sense a threat, our bodies release it automatically. It increases our heart rate, sends blood to our muscles, sharpens our senses. We become faster and stronger. Pain becomes easier to ignore." Wrote this down with trembling hands. Most species had fear responses that made them slower, weaker, more likely to flee. Humans had a chemical that made them more dangerous. How long does this effect last? It depends on the situation. Minutes, usually. But in extreme cases, humans have reported functioning at high adrenaline levels for hours. Hours? Thought about the battle at Station 7. Sergeant Lee Minu had fought for 18 hours straight with a broken arm. Now understood how. The next day, asked about human hunting methods. Lieutenant explained, "Our ancestors did not have claws or fangs or great speed, so they developed something else, persistence hunting." What is that? Most animals can run faster than humans in short bursts, but humans can run longer. We sweat to cool ourselves. We breathe efficiently. We can track prey for days without rest, following it until it collapses from exhaustion. Felt sick? You chase creatures until they die of tiredness. Our ancestors did, yes. It was very effective. Imagined it, a human walking steadily across the landscape, never stopping, never resting, always following, always coming. The prey would run and hide and run again, but every time it looked back, the human would still be there, closer, patient. "This is horrifying," said quietly. Lieutenant shrugged. "It kept us alive." On the third day, studied human healing. Doctor showed scans of various injuries and their recovery. Broken bones that knit back together, cuts that closed, and illnesses that were fought off by something called an immune system. "Your body attacks threats internally," said. "Yes, white blood cells identify and destroy foreign organisms. Bacteria, viruses, parasites. Our bodies learn from each infection and become resistant." "And the side effects?" Doctor paused. "Sometimes the immune system becomes too aggressive. It attacks healthy tissue. We call these autoimmune disorders." Your defense system attacks yourself. Sometimes, yes. Leaned back, even human bodies were at war, even inside they were fighting. On the fourth day, asked about human food. Engineer led a tour of the ship's mess hall. He seemed amused by his questions. Humans are omnivores, he explained. We can eat plants and meat. Our digestive systems are very adaptable. And these, pointed to small red objects on a table. Peppers, they contain a chemical called capsaicin. It causes a burning sensation. Why would you eat something that burns you? Smiled, we enjoy it. Stared, you eat pain for pleasure. Some of us do, yes. We also drink alcohol, which is technically a poison, and caffeine, which affects our nervous system. Many humans consume these daily. Thought about the conquered databases. Capsaicin was listed as a toxic substance. Alcohol was used as an industrial solvent. Caffeine was classified as a dangerous stimulant. Humans consumed all of them recreationally. On the fifth day, asked about human social bonds. Sergeant Lee Menu talked about this. He was a large man with a gentle voice, which found confusing. Humans form strong attachments, he said. To family, friends, communities, we feel loyalty very deeply. How deeply? A human will die for the people they love, without hesitation, without regret. Considered this. Prey species formed groups for protection, yes, but they would flee if the group was threatened. Self-preservation was the strongest instinct. And if the group cannot be saved? Sergeant Lee's expression changed. Something hard appeared in his eyes. Then we make sure the enemy regrets what they did. Revenge, you said. Justice, Sergeant Lee corrected. Humans do not forget. We do not forgive easily. If you hurt the people we protect, we will find you. It does not matter how long it takes. It does not matter where you hide. He said this calmly, without anger. It was simply a fact. Spent the sixth day reviewing all the data. The findings were clear. Humans were not prey. They were not like any species the conquered had ever encountered. They were something new, something impossible, something that should not exist. Apex predators that worked together. Endurance hunters that never stopped. Biological weapons that healed from any wound. Poison eaters that smiled through pain. Pack animals that would die for each other and kill for each other without hesitation. On the seventh day, presented the findings to the conquered council. The chamber was silent as spoke. Representatives from 200 species listened, their various bodies still, their various eyes wide. Humans are not prey, concluded. They are apex predators, but not the kind we have seen before. They are social predators. They hunt in packs. They communicate without words, through eye contact and body language. They feel loyalty so intensely that they will sacrifice themselves for their group. A council member raised a hand. But they showed mercy. They rescued our people. Yes, agreed. That is what makes them truly terrifying. They choose when to be predators. They control their instincts. They can be gentle and kind and helpful. But when they decide something is a threat to their pack, they become something else entirely. Another council member spoke. What do you recommend? Hesitated. I recommend we make absolutely certain that humans consider us part of their pack. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Far away, in a different part of the galaxy, High Commander of the Hegemony received his own reports. He sat in his command chair, a massive creature covered in armored scales. The Hegemony had conquered 100 worlds. They had crushed every enemy they faced. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, and they knew it. An aide approached with data tablets. Commander, the reports from Station 7. Took the tablets and read, his lip curled with contempt. Humans, soft, squishy bipeds from a tiny planet. They had won one small battle through luck and surprise, nothing more. How many of them are there? Asked. 8 billion on there, small colonies elsewhere. Fleet strength. Minimal, a few hundred vessels, nothing compared to ours. Laughed, it was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. They are nothing, a minor annoyance. If they interfere again, we will crush them. Their planet will burn, their species will be forgotten. He tossed the tablets aside. Focus on real threats. The humans are irrelevant. His aides bowed and left. Returned to his planning. The conquered was weak. The galaxy was ripe for conquest. Nothing could stop the hegemony. Certainly not some small, soft creatures from a blue world. He would learn how wrong he was soon enough. On the Endurance, Captain Park stood at his window and watched the stars. Lieutenant joined him. The scholar left, she reported, seemed disturbed. Understandable, said. We are not what they expected. Do you think the conquered will accept us? They will have to. The hegemony will not stop. Sooner or later there will be another battle, and another, and another. Nodded, and when that happens... Captain Park turned from the window. His expression was calm, but his eyes held something ancient, something patient, something that had chased prey across savannas for 1,000,000 years. When that happens, he said quietly, we will show the galaxy what humans really are. The stars burned cold and bright outside. The hunt was only beginning. Station floated at the edge of conquered space, a hub of trade and diplomacy. 300,000 beings lived and worked there. Families, children, merchants and scientists and artists from dozens of worlds. When the hegemony fleet appeared from hyperspace, they had no warning. 40 warships, thousands of soldiers. High Commander had sent his best forces, commanded by a brutal officer named. The mission was simple: destroy the station, kill everyone aboard and send a message to the conquered. Surrender or die. The station's defenses were minimal. A few patrol ships, some shield generators, nothing that could stop a full assault. Distress signals went out immediately, screaming across space for help. The nearest conquered fleet was 3 days away. 3 days. The station had hours at most. On Earth, Captain Park received the transmission in the middle of the night. He read it once, then again, then called his senior officers to the bridge. Station, he said, full hegemony assault, 300,000 civilians. Conquered reinforcements are 3 days out. The officers studied the tactical data in silence. Lieutenant spoke first. We can reach them in 14 hours at maximum speed. And do what? Sergeant Lee Minu asked. We have 1 ship, 42 crew. They have 40 warships and thousands of soldiers. We hold, Captain said simply. Everyone turned to look at him. We cannot win, he continued. We cannot destroy their fleet or drive them away, but we can slow them down. We can make them fight for every corridor. We can buy time until the conquered arrives. Doctor leaned forward. You are talking about a siege, 3 days against those odds. Yes. We will take casualties. Yes. Some of us will die. Probably. The bridge was silent. Then Sergeant Lee Minu smiled. I have always wanted to see how long I can go without sleep, he said. Engineer nodded. The engines can handle maximum speed, probably. Lieutenant was already calculating. If we use the station structure, create choke points, force them into close quarters. It could work, Doctor finished. It is insane, but it could work. Captain looked at each of them, his crew, his pack. Then we go, he said. The Endurance launched within the hour. 14 hours later, they arrived at station. The battle had already begun. Hegemony ships circled the station, firing at its shields. Explosions lit the void. Debris tumbled through space. The station was wounded but still fighting, its few defenders giving everything they had. Captain opened a communication channel. Hegemony Commander, this is the Earth vessel Endurance. Withdraw your forces immediately. A harsh laugh answered him. Commander's face appeared on screen. He was massive, scaled, with teeth like daggers. "One ship, you threaten me with one ship," sneered. "Your species is as stupid as they say. I will destroy you first, then finish the station." "You are welcome to try," replied calmly, "but I should warn you, humans are very difficult to kill." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "Begin." The Endurance dove into the battle. What followed was unlike anything the hegemony had seen. The human ship did not fight like a conquered vessel. It did not stay at range and exchange fire. It did not try to match the enemy's strength. Instead, it danced. Lieutenant had studied hegemony tactics for months. She knew their patterns, their responses, their instincts. Predator species were aggressive but predictable. They attacked what they saw. They chased what ran. So she made them chase. The Endurance darted between enemy ships, too fast to target, too unpredictable to trap. It would appear, fire a devastating burst at a weak point, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Shields failed, weapon systems exploded, engines sputtered and died. The hegemony ships began to pile up, damaged and confused. "Sir, they are regrouping," reported. "Coordinated attack pattern." "Then we go to the station," decided. "Let them follow." The Endurance flew to station and docked at a secondary port. Captain gathered his security teams. 42 of us," he said. 300,000 civilians to protect. We hold the main corridors. We do not let them through." Sergeant Lee Menu distributed weapons and armor. Standard rules of engagement. "No," said, "this is a siege. We use everything, traps, ambushes, misdirection, make them fear every shadow." Menu grinned. "I was hoping you would say that." The hegemony boarding parties arrived an hour later. Commander led them personally. 500 soldiers, the best the hegemony had. They stormed through the docking bays, expecting terrified civilians and token resistance. They found Sergeant Lee Menu waiting. He stood alone in a corridor, unarmed, hands raised. The hegemony soldiers surrounded him, weapons aimed. "Surrender," ordered. "Tell us where the others hide." Menu smiled. "Behind you." The walls exploded. Engineer had spent the docking time well. Explosives hidden in panels, traps rigged in vents, power systems ready to overload on command. The hegemony soldiers fell by the dozens before they understood what was happening. And when they turned to fight, the humans were already gone. This became the pattern of the siege. The hegemony would advance, confident in their numbers and strength. Then the humans would strike from nowhere. A shot from a dark corner, an explosion in a supply closet, a door that opened onto vacuum, and always, they would vanish before the enemy could retaliate. Hour after hour, day after day. Lieutenant coordinated the defense from a hidden command center. She tracked enemy movements, predicted their actions, directed the human teams to strike where it hurt most. She slept in 15-minute intervals, jolting awake at every alert. Doctor transformed the medical bay into a battlefield hospital. She treated wounds that should have been fatal, refusing to let anyone die on her watch. When supplies ran low, she improvised. When a soldier wanted to return to the fight with injuries that should have kept them down for weeks, she found a way. Engineer kept the station functioning. Power systems, life support, defensive barriers. He crawled through vents and maintenance tunnels, repairing damage, setting new traps, always one step ahead of the enemy. Sergeant Lee Menu led from the front. He fought for 18 hours straight on the first day, then 20 on the second. His arm was broken in 3 places. He set it himself and kept fighting. His soldiers followed him because they knew he would never ask them to do something he would not do himself. And Captain Park moved through the station like a ghost. He appeared wherever morale was lowest, wherever the line was weakest. He spoke quietly, calmly, reminding everyone what they were fighting for. 300,000 lives, he would say. That is why we hold. That is why we do not break. Every hour we buy is another hour they survive. The hegemony grew frustrated, then desperate, then afraid. Commander had never faced an enemy like this. His soldiers were stronger, better armed, more numerous. But the humans refused to fight fair. They refused to stand and die like proper enemies. They just kept coming, kept fighting, kept killing. And they smiled while they did it. On the second night, found a human soldier cornered in a storage room. She was wounded, out of ammunition, clearly finished. He approached with his weapon raised. "Now you die, human." The soldier laughed. Blood ran down her face, but she laughed. "I am one person," she said. "You have lost 200 soldiers trying to catch me. Even if you kill me now, you have lost." Pulled the trigger. But he remembered that laugh. He would remember it for the rest of his life. By the third day, the hegemony had lost half their boarding force. The station still stood. The humans still fought. And then finally, the conquered fleet arrived. 50 warships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charged, shields raised. The hegemony forces, battered and exhausted, could not stand against them. Commander ordered a retreat. As his ship fled into the void, he looked back at station. Damaged but intact. 300,000 civilians still alive. Defended by 42 humans. No, not 42. 31. 11 had died during the siege. They had held the line until the very end. Captain Park stood on the station's observation deck as the conquered fleet secured the area. He was exhausted beyond words. His uniform was torn and stained. He had not slept in over 60 hours. Ambassador found him there. "Captain," said softly, "the conquered council wishes to thank you. What you did here, it should have been impossible." Shook his head slowly. 11 of my people died. And 300,000 lived because of them. Did not respond. He just looked at the stars. "How did you do it?" asked. "How did you hold for 3 days against those odds?" Captain Park was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but steady. "We are humans," he said. "We have been fighting impossible battles since before we discovered fire. Against nature, against disease, against each other. We learned a long time ago that the only way to survive is to never give up." He turned to look at the ambassador. "You asked once what kind of species we are. Now you know we are the species that holds. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, we hold until the end." Stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly the ambassador bowed. "The conquered is grateful," said, "and the conquered remembers." Across the galaxy the story spread. 42 humans against thousands. 3 days, 31 survivors. And they had held. The hegemony had wanted to send a message with station. They had, just not the message they intended. High Commander smashed the console with his fist, shattering the screen into 1,000 pieces. The report from station had reached him 3 hours ago. Since then, he had destroyed 6 pieces of equipment and executed 2 aides for bringing him bad news. 42 humans, 42 soft, weak, primitive creatures, and they had humiliated the hegemony. "This ends now," growled. He summoned his war council. The greatest military minds of the hegemony gathered in his command chamber, their scaled bodies gleaming under harsh lights. "The humans have made fools of us," said. "They have proven themselves a threat. There is only one response." He activated a holographic display. A small blue planet appeared, floating in the void. "Earth," he said. "There we will burn it to ash. We will kill every human in existence. We will erase them from the galaxy." A council member hesitated. "Commander, the humans have proven, resourceful, perhaps caution." Silenced him with a look that promised death. "We are the hegemony. We have conquered 100 worlds. We do not show caution to prey." He leaned forward, his eyes burning. "I am assembling the largest fleet in our history, 500 warships, 2 million soldiers. We will crush them with overwhelming force." The council bowed their heads in submission. "Prepare the fleet," ordered. "We launch in 1 month." News of the coming invasion reached Earth within days. The conquered had spies in hegemony space. Ambassador brought the warning personally, appearing before the United Earth Council with fear in every movement. 500 ships, said, 2 million soldiers. Commander himself is leading the assault. He means to destroy your species entirely. The council chamber erupted in panic. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded surrender. Others demanded help from the conquered. Captain Park sat quietly through the chaos. When the noise finally died down, he stood. "Ambassador," he said calmly, "thank you for the warning. You may tell the conquered that Earth appreciates their concern." Blinked, "That is all. Captain, you face extinction." "We face a battle. There is a difference. You cannot defeat the hegemony. Not alone, not against those numbers." Smiled slightly. "You might be surprised." He turned to the council. "Humanity has had 1 month's warning. That is 1 month to prepare, 1 month to plan, 1 month to remind the galaxy what kind of species we really are." Lieutenant stepped forward. "We have been studying hegemony tactics since station. We know how they think. We know their patterns. We know their weaknesses." Sergeant Lee Minyu joined her. "Our soldiers have been training. Our defenses have been reinforced. We are not the same species they faced before." Doctor added, "We have been preparing medical protocols for mass casualties. We can keep our people fighting longer than the enemy expects." Engineer finished, "And we have been building new ships, new weapons, new surprises." Captain looked at the council. "Humanity has spent its entire history at war, against nature, against disease, against each other. Every strategy the galaxy has seen, we invented independently. Every tactic the hegemony uses, we know how to counter." He straightened his uniform. "The hegemony thinks they are the predators. They are wrong. They are walking into a trap 10,000 years in the making." The month passed quickly. Earth transformed. Shipyards worked day and night. Factories produced weapons and armor. Defense networks spread across the solar system. Civilians trained in emergency protocols. And the soldiers prepared for war. Lieutenant designed the defense plan. She mapped every asteroid, every moon, every piece of debris in the solar system. She identified ambush points and kill zones. She created a web of traps that would turn the entire region into a nightmare for any invader. Sergeant Lee Minyu trained the ground forces, veterans from every nation, every conflict, every corner of Earth. They were different in language and culture and appearance, but they all shared one thing: they were human, and they would not let their home burn. Doctor organized the medical corps, field hospitals, emergency surgeries, trauma response teams. She trained doctors and nurses to work under fire to save lives while explosions shook the ground. Engineer led the construction efforts. Ships modified with experimental technology, weapons that the hegemony had never seen, defense platforms hidden in plain sight. He worked until his hands bled, then worked some more. Captain Park coordinated everything. He appeared everywhere, talking to soldiers and workers and civilians. He listened to concerns. He solved problems. He reminded everyone what they were fighting for. "Earth is our home," he said in a broadcast that reached every human in the system. "Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and world wars. They built civilizations from nothing. They dreamed of the stars. We are their children. We will not let their legacy end here." And when the hegemony fleet finally arrived, humanity was ready. 500 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. High Commander stood on his flagship, watching the small blue planet in the distance. "Begin the assault," he ordered. The fleet advanced. They encountered the first mines 30 seconds later. Explosions rippled through space. Ships that had survived 100 battles were torn apart by weapons they never detected. The hegemony formation scattered, confused. "Where did those come from?" demanded. Before anyone could answer, the second wave hit. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids, weapons blazing. They struck the damaged vessels, finished them off, then vanished before the hegemony could respond. Classic guerrilla tactics, executed with precision. Roared orders. The fleet reformed, pushed forward, but every kilometer brought new traps. More mines, more ambushes, more losses. The invasion force that had seemed unstoppable was being bled dry. Lieutenant commanded the defense from a hidden station on Earth's moon. She watched the battle unfold on massive screens, adjusting tactics in real time. Wing 7 pull back to Sector 12. Wing 3 prepare for flanking assault. Artillery platforms fire on my mark. She had studied every hegemony battle for the past year. She knew how they thought, she knew how they reacted, and she used that knowledge to destroy them. Sergeant Lee Minyu led the ground defense on Mars, where hegemony soldiers attempted to establish a foothold. He met them in the red dust, surrounded by warriors who would rather die than retreat. The fighting was brutal, close quarters, hand to hand. The hegemony soldiers were larger and stronger, but the humans were faster and more adaptable. They used the terrain. They worked as teams. They fought like demons. Minyu took a wound to his shoulder in the 3rd hour. He bandaged it himself and kept fighting. By the 10th hour, the hegemony foothold was gone. Doctors' medical teams worked miracles. Soldiers who should have died were stabilized. Soldiers who should have been bedridden for months were back in action within days. The hegemony could not understand how the humans kept coming. They killed them and they got back up. Engineers' surprises continued throughout the battle. Drones that turned hegemony missiles back on their launchers. Ships that appeared dead but came back to life at critical moments. Power systems that overloaded and took enemy vessels with them. And Captain Park led from the front, commanding the main fleet in a battle above Earth itself. He faced High Commander directly. "You should have stayed in your territory," said through the communication channel. His face twisted with rage. "You are prey. You should be running. You should be begging for mercy." "Humans do not beg." "Then you will die." "Maybe," agreed, "but we will take you with us." The battle above Earth lasted for 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting, constant death, constant sacrifice. The human fleet was outnumbered, outmatched in every conventional measure. But they had something the hegemony did not. They were fighting for home. Every human soldier knew that behind them were families, children, everything they loved. There was no retreat. There was no surrender. There was only victory or extinction. And humans, when cornered, became something terrifying. By the 3rd day, the hegemony fleet was shattered. Half their ships were destroyed. A quarter more were too damaged to fight. Their soldiers were exhausted, demoralized, terrified of an enemy that simply would not stop. High Commander stood on his damaged flagship and watched his empire crumble. "How," he whispered, "how is this possible?" His aide, one of the few still alive, spoke quietly. "Sir, I believe we made a mistake." "What mistake?" "We thought they were prey. We thought they would run like every other species. We did not understand." "Understand what?" The aide looked at the blue planet that had cost them everything. "They were never prey, sir. They were predators pretending to be prey, and we walked into their territory." Said nothing. He simply watched as the last hope of the hegemony invasion burned in the void. On Earth, Captain Park watched the enemy retreat. His ship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. He had lost friends, soldiers, people he cared about. But Earth still stood. Humanity still lived. Lieutenant appeared beside him, equally tired, equally determined. "They are running," she reported. "Should we pursue?" Considered. The predator instinct was there, urging him to chase, to finish, to destroy completely. But he shook his head. No, let them go. Sir, we are not like them. We defend, we protect, we do not hunt for pleasure. He turned to look at her. Besides, they need to survive. They need to go back to their people and tell them what happened here. Understood, a warning. A promise, corrected. Humanity will not seek war, but if war comes to us, this is what happens. He looked out at the stars, at the retreating hegemony fleet, at the beginning of a new era. The hunt is over, he said quietly, for now. But they both knew it was not really over. It was just beginning. The war was over. What remained of the hegemony fleet limped back to their territory, carrying stories of defeat and terror. High Commander retreated to his fortress world, surrounded by the shattered remnants of his once mighty empire. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for centuries began to hope. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Endurance as it flew toward the final confrontation. The ship had been repaired after the battle for Earth, though scars remained. Some marks could not be erased. Sir, we are approaching the Hegemony Command Station, Lieutenant reported. No defensive response. Their fleet is too damaged to intercept. Nodded slowly. The past months had been exhausting. The defense of Earth, the liberation of occupied worlds, the slow, steady advance into hegemony space. Through it all, the humans had fought with precision and restraint, destroying military targets but sparing civilians. It was not easy. The predator instinct whispered constantly, urging them to hunt, to chase, to finish the enemy completely, but refused to listen. We are not conquerors, he reminded his crew regularly. We are protectors. There is a difference. Now they approached the heart of hegemony power. One final battle remained. Sergeant Lee Minu entered the bridge, armor scratched and dented from countless engagements. Boarding teams are ready, sir. Say the word and we take the station. No boarding, said. Everyone turned to look at him. Sir, Minu asked. I am going alone. The bridge fell silent. Doctor spoke first. Captain, that is suicide, is desperate. He will kill you the moment you step aboard. Maybe, agreed, but I need to give him a choice, a real choice, not surrounded by soldiers and weapons, just two commanders talking. Why? Engineer asked. Looked out at the station hanging in space. Because that is what separates us from them. We can choose. We can decide to be something other than what our instincts demand. He turned to his crew, his family. If I do not return, Lieutenant takes command. Continue the mission. Protect the innocent. Show the galaxy what humanity can be. Before anyone could argue further, he walked to the shuttle bay. The flight to the station was quiet. Thought about the journey that had brought him here. First contact when they had been mistaken for prey. The battle at Station 7, the siege of the defense of Earth. So many battles, so many losses, so many moments when it would have been easier to give up. But humans did not give up. That was their curse and their blessing. The shuttle docked at the station's command level. The airlocks opened. High Commander waited on the other side. He was alone, as had requested. The massive creature looked smaller now, diminished by defeat. His scales were dull. His eyes were tired. He held a weapon, but it hung loosely at his side. You came alone, said. His voice was rough, damaged. Either you are very brave or very stupid. Probably both, replied. He stepped forward slowly, hands visible, showing he carried no weapon. I wanted to talk. Talk, laughed bitterly. What is there to talk about? You have one. My fleet is destroyed. My empire is crumbling. My people curse my name for leading them to ruin. Yes. Then why are you here? To gloat, to execute me yourself? Shook his head. I am here to offer you a choice. Stared at him. A choice. The war can end two ways, spoke calmly without threat. The first way, we continue fighting. Your remaining forces resist. More battles, more death. Eventually, the hegemony falls completely. Your people are scattered, broken, ashamed. Your name becomes a curse in history. And the second way. You surrender, not to be humiliated but to survive. The hegemony joins the conquered as an equal member. Your people keep their worlds, their culture, their dignity. They are allowed to rebuild. His grip tightened on his weapon. You think I would surrender to prey? I think you would do anything to save your people, said quietly, just like I would do anything to save mine. Silence stretched between them. Why? Finally asked. Why offer mercy? We tried to destroy you. We burned your stations. We killed your soldiers. We attacked your. Why would you not want revenge? Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. Because I understand you. His eyes widened. You are a predator, continued. You were taught that strength is the only virtue, that the weak deserve to be conquered, that mercy is weakness. I know those instincts. I feel them too. He stepped closer, close enough for to strike him down with ease. But I also know that those instincts are not the whole truth. Humans spent thousands of years being predators. We fought each other. We conquered each other. We committed terrible acts in the name of strength. His voice dropped, and it almost destroyed us. We came close to extinction more than once, not from external enemies but from ourselves, from our own violence. Listen, something changing in his expression. We learned, eventually, that the predator instinct is not enough. Strength without mercy leads only to destruction. Power without compassion builds nothing lasting. We had to choose to be more than what we were born to be. Met's eyes directly. That is what I am offering you. A chance to choose, to be more than a predator, to build instead of destroy, to be remembered as the leader who saved his people, not the one who doomed them. Was silent for a long time. Finally, his weapon fell from his hand. It clattered on the metal floor, loud in the quiet. I accept, he said hoarsely. I surrender the hegemony to the galactic conquered. End this war. Let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Thank you, he said simply. The announcement went out across the galaxy within hours. The hegemony war was over. The great enemy had surrendered. Peace had come at last. On the conquered, celebrations erupted. Species that had lived in fear for generations danced in the streets. Ambassador addressed the crowds, praising the courage of the humans who had achieved the impossible. On Earth, the reaction was quieter. People gathered with families and friends, grateful to be alive, grateful that the fighting was done. They mourned the fallen. They honored the survivors. They looked to the future with cautious hope. On the Endurance, Captain Park sat alone in his quarters. The door chimed. Lieutenant entered without waiting for permission. You should be celebrating, she said. I am tired. You saved the galaxy. We saved the galaxy, all of us. He looked up at her. I just talked to one person. You and the others did the real work. Sat across from him. The conquered wants to hold a ceremony. Medals, speeches, the whole spectacle. They want you to be the face of human heroism. Grimaced, I hate speeches. I know, she smiled slightly. That is why I volunteered you. He stared at her, then laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. 1 week later, Captain Park stood before the assembled galactic conquered. 200 species, thousands of delegates, billions watching across space, all waiting to hear from the human who had changed everything. Looked out at the crowd and felt the weight of the moment. What could he say that would matter? What words could capture what humanity had learned? He took a breath and began. When you first found us, you thought we were prey, small creatures from a small world. You expected us to be grateful for your protection, happy to hide behind stronger species. He paused. You were wrong, but so were we. The chamber was silent, hanging on every word. We thought being strong meant being feared. We thought our predator instincts made us powerful. We prepared for war because we believed that was all we were good for. He shook his head. We were wrong too. Strength is not about what you can destroy. It is about what you can protect. The same instincts that make humans chase, that make us hunt, that make us hold against impossible odds, they also make us loyal, compassionate, willing to sacrifice everything for those we love. He looked at his crew scattered through the audience. Minu, his pack, his family. Humans are predators. We cannot change that. But we can choose what we hunt. We can choose to hunt injustice instead of the weak. We can choose to protect instead of destroy. We can choose to be guardians instead of conquerors. His voice rose. The hegemony feared us because they saw themselves in us. They knew what predators could do. What they did not understand is that predators can also choose mercy. We showed them that choice today. He addressed the entire assembly. The conquered welcomed us when they thought we were prey. Now they know the truth. We are the galaxy's ultimate predators, and we choose to use that power to protect, to defend, to stand between the darkness and everyone who cannot stand for themselves. He straightened. That is humanity's promise to the galaxy. When trouble comes, when enemies appear, when the shadows gather, look for us. We will be there, we will fight, we will hold. His voice dropped to something soft but absolutely certain. And when the darkness comes, we will hunt it down. The chamber erupted in applause. Later, after the ceremony, after the celebrations, Captain Park returned to the Endurance. Lieutenant found him at the observation window, watching the stars. "Nice speech," she said. "Thank you. Did you mean it?" He turned to look at her, every word. She nodded and stood beside him, two humans looking out at the infinite galaxy. "What now?" she asked. Captain Park smiled. "Now we do what we promised. We protect, we explore, we build. We show the galaxy that predators can be more than monsters." He looked at the stars. "There is a lot of darkness out there, Lieutenant. A lot of people who need help. A lot of battles still to fight." She waited. "But for now," he said softly, "we go home." The Endurance turned toward Earth, leaving the conquered behind. Behind them, the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had arrived, and the stars would never be the same.